One thing you can always count on in politics is that silence speaks super loud, and it is louder than words. And in my last video, a lot of you pointed out something that I just didn't fully unpack. So I want to go ahead and I just want to deal with it. Winsome Sears, the gubernatorial candidate in the state of Virginia, you guys were right. She did not personally pick John Reid as her running mate. Fair enough. I was as wrong as two left shoes. But here is the real issue. When you refuse to be clear, when you refuse to draw lines in the sand, when you refuse to stand firm, you will leave a whole lot of room for confusion and compromise and catastrophe. And that is exactly what happened in the Virginia governor's race. Because even if she didn't choose him, she did not correct him or challenge him to her voters. She didn't distance herself from the ideological contradiction that was sitting right beside her, trying to be the lieutenant governor of her state. Meanwhile, though, the Democrat that she was running against refused to disavow a man who talked about deleting a state legislator and their children. Yet, we're supposed to pretend that Republicans don't have to be bold. I'm sorry, I don't think so. Absolutely not. In my last video, I broke down why Winsome Sears lost the Virginia's governor's race, and I told you guys the truth about her distancing herself from Trump and the consequences of having an openly homosexual on the Republican ticket. So, this episode is the follow-up. It's the clarity that we needed, because in politics and in life, when we exhibit courage, courage is kind of contagious, but compromise is absolutely deadly. So let's get into this. Grace and peace, you guys. Welcome back to Unshakable with April Chapman, where we discuss all things social, cultural, political, and theological from a biblical perspective. I am your host, April Chapman, and welcome to today's show. So first, I want to start off. Let me apologize. I need to apologize, and I kind of just need to lead with some humility. I need to correct the record from my previous video regarding how Virginia politics works. Obviously, I don't live in Virginia. I live here in the great state of Georgia. And I need to clarify or correct something that I said in my last video. So to be clear, for the record, Winsome Sears, who was running for governor in the state of Virginia, she did not handpick John Reid. She did not do that. The way it works in Virginia, the lieutenant governor, that candidate runs separate from the governor. So to be clear and accurate, technically, her name and John Reid's name, it kind of just ended up together because of how the primary structure works in the states. So in my last video, I did a post-mortem autopsy. I wanted to figure out what went wrong in this race. And in my autopsy, I mentioned that Winsome Sears lost because she didn't stand firm on certain principles. And a lot of y'all reached out, whoever didn't send a DM, sent an email, left a message. You left messages in the comments. And I'm grateful for that. A lot of you pointed out, you were like, April, she didn't actually choose John Reid as her running mate. And I just want to go on record and say, you guys were right. You were absolutely right. In Virginia, the lieutenant governor runs separately. So John Reid ended up on the ticket because he chose to run, not because Winsome handpicked him. Glad that we're able to get that out the way. But here's where I would say leadership matters and why I'm still going to double down in my commentary, right? Two things can be true at the same time. Just because you didn't choose someone doesn't mean that you're kind of forced to endorse what they represent. And I'm sure most of you would agree with that. But here is where I think we need to be crystal clear. Once John Reid was on the ticket, Winsome had a choice, just like John Reid had a choice. She could have, I don't know, done away with or did what any courageous conservative leader would do, and that's treat John Reid just like they did David Duke, who thought that he could be the Grand Wizard of the KKK and run for office as a Republican. She should have. I know, like, hindsight is 2020. April, you're being too harsh. I feel how I feel. Okay, so you got to sit back and just ruminate with me for a little bit. Winsome Sears should have, in my opinion, she should have publicly disavowed what she claims that she did not stand for. But she did not do that. And the silence of her not doing that, it sent a bold message. It told evangelicals, I'm not willing to stand firm on this. And in my opinion, that is where the problem started. So now we need to cut into this political cadaver, and I wanna dig in. Okay, I want to get some tools and take a closer look, because when we made our first political incision in this postmortem autopsy, we made that incision because we wanted to see what went wrong. So what I want to do now is I want to show you guys a clip of a fatal mistake that took place as it relates to this entire race. Let's take a look.
Governor Glenn Youngkin and Lieutenant Governor Winsome Sears are speaking out as Republican John Reid vows to stay in the race for Lieutenant Governor. This as he denies any connection to sexually explicit materials posted online. Lieutenant Governor Winsome Sears' campaign says she has no problem with John Reid staying in the race. In a statement, she said, quote, John Reid is the Republican nominee for Lieutenant Governor. It is his race and his decision alone to move forward. The Richmond Times-Dispatch reporting that Governor Youngkin says the decision is John's and up to John. Meanwhile, the Virginia Mercury says Reid is now pointing the finger at Youngkin's top advisor, Matt Moran. Reid's legal team sent Moran a cease and desist letter accusing him of defamation, extortion, and reckless disregard for the truth. Moran has not commented on the matter.
So that clip was important, and I wanted you guys to hear it because they actually quoted Winsome Sears, and she said that she did not have a problem with him staying in the race and that the race is his race to run. And I'm like, yeah, that was a weak statement. A courageous person would have said, I don't stand with this. I don't affirm this. This does not reflect my values, my convictions, or the Republican Party of the state of Virginia. But she didn't say any of that. Instead of drawing this line in the sand, Winsome kind of smoothed over the sand. She offered a very weak statement. She did not publicly make this thing, John Reid. She didn't make him a thing. And I'm like, ma'am, you could have had evangelical voters eating out of your hand if you had showed that you didn't give a darn about little buddy's feelings, and you showed that you cared more about your convictions than about his feelings. And the reason why I say that is because Winsome's brand was a military gun-toting firebrand whose conservatism was driven by her faith. Well, my thing is her inability to tell John Reid where to go and how to get there, in my opinion, it showed weakness. And so the Republican base, especially evangelicals, they picked up on that disconnect immediately. And what I want to do now is I need you guys to take a look at John Reid, though. Take a look at John Reid. I want to bring in a piece of evidence that honestly, it speaks louder than anything that I've said so far. I want you guys to take a listen to John Reid. He is the openly homosexual, gay man. I know that's redundant, but this was the lieutenant governor candidate. You could call him a running mate or not really, but I want you to notice how bold and assertive and how unapologetically confident this man is in what he believes. So let's take a look at this clip.
And we're both willing to put aside our differences and say, what's in the best interest of the Commonwealth? And that's what we're going to do. And that's why you see me standing with her, and that's why she's standing with me.
Okay, so what's one thing you disagree on?
Oh, well, she's not for gay marriage. She's 100% against it. And I think, she's from Jamaica, and her religious background tells her a very different narrative than my Episcopalian white guy from Virginia background. I understand. At some point we'll have to talk about this, and I'm sure she will be true to her feelings. And one thing you can be sure of, I'm going to tell you what my feelings are, and I'm not going to back away from that. If she's the governor, though, she will make decisions. I will give her my best guidance. I don't know whether she'll take it or not. That's what mature adults do. I'm not going to kowtow to anybody. I'm not going to deny who I am to make somebody else feel comfortable. I will tell you what I think, and I think the vast majority of Virginia voters appreciate that candor from me, and I think from her.
Okay. So John has spoken, and what I want to do, y'all, we need to walk through some of his own words from this interview. And here's what he said, quote, "I'm going to tell you what my feelings are, and I'm not going to back away from that. Quote, I'm not going to kowtow to anybody. Quote, I'm not going to deny who I am to make somebody else feel comfortable. Quote, I think the vast majority of Virginia voters appreciate that candor from me." Do you see it? Do you see it? Do you hear it? You guys, this man was unmoved. He was, dare I say it, unshakable, but in the wrong direction. This man is proud of who he is, and he does not care who doesn't like it. He was bold about his worldview. He was unapologetic about his lifestyle. He refused to back down from what he believed. And the question that nobody wants to ask is, where was Winsome? Where was her conviction? Where was her courage? Where was her refusal to compromise? Because John Reid was out here in these streets preaching his gospel with more boldness than the woman who claims to be a Christian. This man literally said, she's not for gay marriage. He said that she's 100% against it. Okay, great. We hear you what your mouth says, but where was that woman on the campaign trail? Because that version of Winsome never showed up. We never saw 100% against it. We saw maybe 42%, maybe 37.8% against it on a good day. But we did not see, with the same veracity, the Winsome Sears that was the equivalent of John Reid. Meanwhile, John Reid stood there like, I'm not backing down. This man did not flinch. He didn't flinch. He didn't soften his stance. He's like, I don't give a darn about you evangelicals. This is who I am. I am here. You will see me. This man did not do that political soft shoe shuffle. He didn't do any of that. He stood tall with his little bird chest out and his chin up. And he was like, this is who I am. And I am not apologizing for it. Love it or hate it, that is called conviction. But my question is, the Christian, the conservative, the woman who supposedly is rooted in biblical truth was silent, soft, careful, way too diplomatic, way too concerned about we just need to move forward. Well, you see what that got you. Way too concerned about appearing tolerant. Ain't nobody got time for that. Not in this cultural climate that we're in, not in this political climate that we are in. She was concerned about glowing reviews from maybe, I don't know, the Richmond Times Dispatch, I guess. I don't know. But listen, if the unbeliever is bolder in their rebellion than the believer is in their alleged righteousness, that is a crisis of leadership. John Reid said out loud, "I'm not denying who I am to make anybody comfortable." Okay, then, we see you pimping. But my question is, why was Winsome Sears denying who she was to make him comfortable? Huh? Is anybody gonna
Flag on the plate.
Is anybody going to ask that? Is anybody going to ask why the lieutenant governor candidate stood firmer in his sin than the gubernatorial candidate stood in her biblical convictions? Why was that a thing? And then this man tried to chalk it up to her ethnicity. Oh, well, she's Jamaican, and in her religion and culture and stuff, how it is. This man passively, aggressively mocked her faith and her culture. And there's ain't no way. If I was Winsome, I'd be like, no. What we're not going to do is no way I wouldn't have come out swinging. Oh, now we've got to throw political hands. This right here is why evangelicals stayed home, because they're like, she is not our candidate. She ain't got it in her. Why? Because courage is contagious. And in that moment, they needed someone contagious. But just as courage is contagious, so is cowardice. And in this race, only one person showed conviction, and it wasn't the one claiming to be a follower of Jesus. I know that hurt. I know that stung. But how else do you want me to slice this bird? Now, what I thought was interesting in this whole race was that Winsome tried to get Abigail to disavow Jay Jones, the Democrat attorney general candidate who clearly has some serious anger issues and wants to take them out on his political opponents and their children. Abigail, was in the crosshairs constantly for that. Winsome had a whole lot of smoke for Abigail. All you heard was, Abigail, aren't you going to say anything? Don't you have anything to say, Abigail? I was just, all right. That probably was a bad impersonation. But Abigail should have been embarrassed. But that wasn't the level of veracity that we needed from a candidate. My question is, where was the smoke, the public smoke for John Reid? Where were the Republicans who were bold and loud to tell Winsome, you have to disavow John Reid publicly and you have to call him out for the plant that he is? People are not stupid. If you stand up straight and just be who you are, it tells the people that you've got the fortitude and that you said what you said and it's going to be what it's going to be and you don't care who doesn't like it. And to be honest, y'all, Winsome could have dealt with it privately before going scorched earth. She needed to go scorched earth nuclear on John Reid publicly, but this is how she could have handled it in private. She could have been like, listen here, John, I'm not playing with you, okay? Now, I will schedule a whole press conference tomorrow. I will invite any and everybody who wants to come. And I will tell everybody that I am not co-signing to your little saucy sodomite foolishness. I'm not going to be able to do it. We're not doing this, John Reid. I need you to stand down, homie. I like you. You're nice. Your boo thing, he's nice too. But you want to come out here boldly, telling everybody how you get down. You could have kept that to yourself, but no, you got to be out with your pride. Why does anybody need to know all about what it is that you do sexually? Unless it's the main event and it's the thing that you want to be known for. Why do we know this, John? I should not know this about you. At this point, you might as well just tell everybody that you smoke crack, okay? That's how shameful it is. Now, you claim the gay corn pictures are not yours. Fine. But you got a whole boot thing by your side, my guy. We can't do that. You are an openly gay, southern white man with a black boy toy, trying to run as a Republican. This is not the proper way to live and function in Republican politics, especially with you screaming it all loud and proud, John. You either leave this race or I'm publicly disavowing you. And I ain't gonna flinch. You bold in your stance and who you are. Say it loud. You gay and you proud. Fine. I will tell everyone that you're a Democrat Party plant and that you do not represent Virginia Republican politics. Okay, Jesus will win over you hands down every day and twice on Sunday, my guy. So the choice is yours. We all got choices, okay? But what I am not going to do is be silent. Sorry, buddy. Text me, boo-boo, by 8 a.m. in the morning with what you decide to do. But if I don't hear from you by 8 o'clock, I'm going live with the press conference. That's what I would have said, right? Like, make it super plain. He was bold and out loud with his. That's what she should have did. But let me explain. I know y'all like, April, why you going so hard? Why you going so hard on Winsome? She's lost. She licking her wounds. Suture up the cadaver so we can move on. I am going so hard. And I am doubling down on my views regarding this race because in a 2024 interview with WSET, John Reid said this. Let me read this to you, what he said in this interview. He said, I am a committed conservative and a married gay man. I believe the party is big enough for both. End quote. This is what he said. These are his words. I'm like, really, sir? No, it's not. It's not big enough for that. Not when the platform, we're not Democrats. The platform is built on biblical definitions of marriage and family. That's what we're trying to conserve. Do you see, you guys, how I believe he's a plant? Because it's the only way you can explain how they're trying to subvert and plant this foolishness and try to get you on board with their kumbaya agenda. I'm sorry. This cannot, does not, and should not fly at all when the conservative base is overwhelmingly evangelical and traditional. We don't want this. We have not asked for this. We are not buying this. Send it back. We don't want it. Return to sender. Okay, I'm just saying, this man, he also publicly dismissed concerns from conservative voters when they were like, okay, like, you a Republican and you openly gay, white, married to a black man. He tried to chalk it up. Oh, that's just fear-based politics. I'm like, oh, so now you're trying to gaslight us and you're trying to flip the script on us as if we don't know who we are. No, sir, that's you. You're the one that's confused, not us. He called himself trying to be unified, but when you come with an ideology and a worldview that is so polarizing, such as trying to normalize gay marriage, that is not unity. That's antagonism. And what do I mean by trying to normalize it? You may say, oh, legislatively, I'm not trying to, introduce anything to kind of make this go a little further. You ain't got to do it legislatively. The symbolism of you and your man is you trying to normalize gay marriage. You want Republicans and conservatives to be like, well, love is love. You can't help who you love as long as he's kind of conservative and he's for low taxes and he might be pro-life. We don't know how. We can't even trust that you're pro-life when you're pushing a worldview, an ideology, and a lifestyle by leading by example with one that can't procreate. How you pro-life and you can't even procreate? Not the way, yes, You have people who are sterile and can't procreate. That is not the category I'm talking about. By extension of who he is, he can't be pro-life because there's no procreation with his lifestyle. That's just how I feel. So, Winsome, listen. I'm asking, where was she? Where was she? Oh, I'm sure she said a lot privately. That's nice. But no one cares about how you feel privately. She said nothing publicly. And if I'm wrong, I'll do another retraction and I stand corrected. But from my vantage point, I didn't see a press release. I didn't see a social media post. I didn't see anything that led us to believe that Winsome was like, absolutely not, no can do. This is not who we are. This ain't gonna work. Y'all got to do something else with him. He ain't got to go home, but he got to get the heck up out of here. So here's the part that really exposes this contrast, right? Like on the Democrat side, their candidate refused to disavow a supporter who openly fantasized about harming a state legislator and the legislator's children. Let me repeat that. This was a man who openly talked about wanting to commit violence and to harm someone's children. And the Democrat candidate virtually said nothing, didn't disavow him, didn't encourage him to drop out the race. You guys, silence is not neutral. Silence is permission. If the left can refuse to distance themselves from someone who talks like a villain from a Lifetime movie, what excuse does a so-called Bible-believing conservative have to, what do you got to lose to refuse to distance yourself from a candidate who openly rejects biblical marriage? Winsome didn't have nothing to lose. She had all of the upside, especially if she would have went scorched earth. That's what she should have did. But this isn't just politics, okay? This is a worldview discussion. Proverbs 28, verse 1 says, "The wicked flee when no one pursues, but the righteous are bold as a lion." Did you hear that? The righteous are what? The righteous. They are bold. Bold as a lion. They don't whimper and they don't cower. Where was Winsome's boldness? Where was it? Courage produces courage. Clarity produces clarity. If Winsome would have said, okay, you not leaving the race, fine, your choice. But now I have to stand firm on what I believe is the proper direction for the state of Virginia as the governor. Okay? I can't be out here trying to be governor of a state and trying to get boys out of girls' sports and freak nasty books out of the classroom when you want to be out here with a whole boyfriend. Okay? So please, I understand, but this is not personal. It's just politics. If she would have did just that and then made disavowing John Reid one of the central components of her campaign and made it real plain and simple and be like, listen, we're not doing this today, okay? But compromise is what she did. When you compromise produces confusion, and confusion is the devil's playground. I'm sorry, dear ones. God is not the author of confusion. He's called us to peace. So if confusion shows up, we know where it's coming from. It's from the father of lies. You guys, when leaders stand firm, it strengthens the people behind them. You need leaders who are not going to stay silent, because when leaders stay silent, people scatter. And scatter they did. She lost. And in fact, I don't even think they scattered. They just, I guess it's kind of scattering. They didn't show up. And toward the end of the race, basically, Winsome told voters that, she and John Reid may not agree on everything. Big elephant in the room on what the everything was. But that they were focused on moving Virginia forward. And I'm like, forward toward what, Winsome? Forward toward what? Definitely not winning the culture war. You can't win the culture war with a homosexual married to a man in the Republican Party. That does not fly. This matters. When the race got hard and the goosebumps hit the base, Winsome grabbed the blanket instead of standing on the word of God. She abandoned her sure foundation, the only authority from which she could stand on. I know that is a hard word to hear, but it is tight and right. Evangelicals didn't just stay home because they're petty. They stayed home because of the principle of it all. If a candidate won't stand up for biblical truth in a primary or a general election, why should evangelicals trust them to stand up in the governor's mansion? We don't believe you. Winsome silence communicated a lot. And it communicated that I'm okay with this. I'm not taking a stand against this. I'm willing to blur the lines because it might help me win. Y'all, blurred lines do not mobilize voters. Now, courage would have electrified the base. It would have shown Republicans that this is how you have a backbone, something that we don't really have a whole lot of. But instead, silence tranquilized it. That's what we got. So we're not here. I know it seems like it. We are not here to drag Winsome. Okay, listen, this is an independent autopsy. Okay, we just had to make a few more incisions. Okay, just had to check some things out. And since the body is still warm, it can get a little ugly. It's messy. This is not personal. I am sure she is a wonderful person, but we're here to learn the lesson that she did not model. Courage is contagious. Conviction is magnetic. And clarity wins elections. If Winsome had just demonstrated some courage, the kind that her opponent did, the kind that draws a line in the sand and stands on it, this entire race could have looked drastically different. But now, the message is clear for the rest of us. If you want to lead conservatives, you cannot be allergic to conviction. Don't hem and haw. Don't fault in between two opinions. That ain't gonna cut it, because if you want evangelicals to support you, you cannot be embarrassed by the Bible. It's who we are. If you want to be unshakable, then you cannot be silent when truth is on the line. But I'm curious to know what you think. I know many of you feel like, okay, you're going a little hard, cut her some slack. Listen, I told you it is not personal. I would have lunch with Winsome and just say everything that I'm saying to her. I would say it to her face. But when I do a postmortem and I look at the veracity and conviction that her opponent had, the question becomes, where was it coming? Why was it not coming from her? I'm curious to know, what do you guys think? Leave me down in the comments below. Do you think that it's not even like gay marriage is on the ballot, but it's the subversive way that, in my opinion, this Democratic plant, which represents way too many infinity stones of intersectionality boxes to not be considered a plant, white, Southern, gay man, married to a man that's black. Come on, you can't make this up. Where is that happening overwhelmingly in conservative circles? It is not. He was a plant. He was a tool. And the Democrats now got the cheat code. We can get them to fold if we just keep running, rinsing and repeating John Reid's in every state. I'm curious to know what you guys think. Is my assessment on point? Sorry I had to come back and make an apology, but it happens. Listen. That's weird. Virginia politics is weird. But she did not choose him as a running mate. But she absolutely did not, in my opinion, publicly disavow him like she should have. And I can't give her an out for that. So until next time, you guys, stand firm, stay bold, and above all else, stay unshakable. Grace and peace.